Hello, everyone. Welcome to Proficy 2025, our annual product launch webinar series. My name is Michelle Rosinski, and I'll be your host today. On today's webinar, we'll be talking about the future of iFIX and how it's taking a fresh new approach to SCADA management. You'll get an exclusive look ahead at iFIX 2026 and its cornerstone, modernization. We'll explore how simplification, quick time to value, and modern tooling are shaping the next evolution of iFIX, and the major impact these innovations will have on the user experience in the next release and beyond. But first, the event today may include forward-looking statements. The information presented is intended to be an outline of general product direction, and it should not be relied on in making any purchasing decisions. Now for some housekeeping. You should all see an interface with some buttons at the bottom of your screen. They look like the ones on the right side of the slide here. Please send any questions you have through the orange chat button. Through the purple envelope button, you can contact our team. The blue paperclip button is our most important, as it's where you'll find relevant content and resources related to today's webinar. Through the peach person icon, you can connect with today's speaker. If you need technical assistance, reach out through the yellow question mark button, but know that most issues can be solved by refreshing your browser. And lastly, please share your feedback. We have the pink checklist button where you can send us your challenges and initiatives. We use this information to build our products collaboratively with your insight, so it's really important. And with that, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Alec Granger. Alec is the Senior Product Manager of iFIX, HMI SCADA automation software at GE Vernova. Alec has over 15 years of product management experience in virtually all areas of automation hardware, including PLCs, I/O, motion, VFD, industrial PCs, and displays. Tying that all together with a focus on functionality, flexibility, and ease of use has been a guiding light in moving the ball forward in the area of HMI SCADA, positioning customers for the best success both now and in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alec.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so thank you everybody again for your time today. We have a pretty good agenda to go over today. We want to talk to you about obviously the introduction, looking at iFIX product progression, laying the groundwork for the modernization story, so you guys can understand the things that we've done, why they're important, and why they've paved the fat path forward for what we've been trying to do here. Then we'll take a look at the centralized configuration management. Many of you may have dipped your toe into it, but many of you may actually be new to it, so we wanted to lay that out as well too. Then we'll look at some of the other extensions to the Proficy portfolio around analytics, Gen AI initiatives, and how that's impacting HMI SCADA and the world for the better. And then we'll look at also, the coming soon in the roadmap, where we'll take a look at actually 2026 and what you should expect to see in the portfolio from there. Starting first at Proficy itself, obviously our focus here has really been around focusing our attention on providing a full suite of software. In the past, I could say truthfully here at Vernova that we've done a lot where we've created software kind of in silos sometimes, where we haven't been looking across the portfolio, but now we have a focus more so on the entire toolbox, right? We understand that as our customers deal with changing things in the landscape, changing challenges and new challenges across not just also what they do, but outside and external, when you're talking about AI and how that impacts everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, cloud-based initiatives and the like, tying enterprise level solutions into as well as what you're doing from an HMI SCADA perspective. We obviously need a portfolio that's flexible enough and capable enough to tie together and provide the tools that are necessary to address the changing challenges in the industries that you guys are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that's really our focus, is that interoperability and our focus around leveraging everything that we're doing. And from a development perspective, we're developing from a team perspective, so that's looking at central management, looking at cloud native across portfolio, how we can leverage, composable capabilities in terms of, how you deploy. Sometimes we're looking at things like customers have flexible deployments where you're focused on, maybe a on-premise solution for part of your actual application. Part of it may be cloud-based entirely. Part of it may be a hybrid of both. We need to make sure that we are supporting you in that initiative there. Other things in terms of, leveraging AI, ML, I kind of brought that up a little bit earlier, bringing that into the sphere of automation and leveraging that across the portfolio has been a major focus for us from Proficy. And so, our focus here in terms of how we're doing things from a portfolio perspective is looking at, automation, manufacturing execution and MES software, our data management and bringing that all together, historian, allowing that to leverage across our portfolio. I mentioned that AI ML as well and how that impacts everything that we're doing. And then also the scheduling software. When we're thinking about it holistically, we allow you, the customer, to have the flexibility that's needed to address changing market spheres, changing market needs, and again, position you both for success today and also in the future. So that's the overall Proficy portfolio, our overall initiative, our overall focus from a development perspective. How does that bear out specifically in iFIX and the product progression here? So I'm going to lay the groundwork here for the last number of years so you guys can have an understanding of why we did what we did, which is always more important than the what. So you can understand the value that we are bringing to the HMI SCADA sphere. So first and foremost, we have a centralized management vision. I mentioned kind of how, again, we're thinking around the portfolio as a whole, and how we bring that together is through centralized management. It's powered by something called Configuration Hub. If you're not already familiar with it, it is not a product. It's not a license. You don't have to license any of these things. It's capability that ties everything that we're doing together from the Proficy portfolio perspective. So when we're talking about this, although it's drawn in a cloud, it's not cloud-based, not inherently at least. It's web-based. The product configuration, product deployment, change management capabilities will be introduced as well too. We have software license, central software license management capabilities within Configuration Hub today, and we are extending those as well too as we go forward into the future. Leveraging things like central security and single sign-on access throughout the Proficy portfolio, where you're using Proficy authentication to allow for the security initiatives to be deployed architecturally wide, right? That way you're not doing security at each individual layer separately, but you can do it holistically. When we talk about visualization, talking about having the capability to have a persona-based visual experience, we're leveraging from various different levels within your architecture, pulling information from all the way down the plant floor up to enterprise level visualization capabilities, where people can sign on, personas can sign on with their credentials through Proficy authentication and be given a visual experience that's relevant to their role. No more of the one-size-fits-all approach to visualization and control. So that way you can really leverage the specific capabilities and expertise that people have within their role and make sure that they have the right information at the right time when they, exactly how they need it and presented in a way that is digestible so they can make the best decisions in a real-time operating procedures. And when we look at the things that we're trying to accomplish here as a company and also within the Proficy portfolio, we have an overarching data model able to leverage other data models that have been preceding it and tying it all together so that you have a more holistic approach, looking at system health and diagnostics, so the things that we're going to be releasing here shortly, and also more of a foray into the change management. I mentioned that we do have the central software license management. We'll have some more information on that here in the slides as we continue to move forward. But, we also have things around software and patch upgrades, centralized, where instead of just going to each individual node, you'll be able to update the SCADA, historian software on each, the nodes holistically from the configuration hub, and not just the software, but also manage your sims/patches. But yeah, we do have full project configuration and deployment today through the configuration hub utility. So just a high-level summary of some of the key technology and capabilities that we have added here in the last number of years. So we've done things that enable us to have a distributed architecture and address changing market needs, like, for instance, TCP/IP-based redundancy. In the past, we had a different approach that was, based more around, redundant pair being sitting in the same room, but we knew that geographic separation of that capability was needed, so we obviously focused our attention there. We added a lot of capabilities around communication of OPC UA server and client, add a lot when it comes to HTML5 or web-based visualization, scalable graphics, our model and implementing that. We'll talk more about that as well too. And then, we've added a lot and continue to add a lot around the alarming. You'll see how some of AI ML is impacting that sphere. Centralized management, I talked about the configuration and deployment and the licensing. Those are things that we've added. And then also the advanced security, leveraging MFA or multi-factor authentication, and adding, support obviously for Active Directory and LDAP. So when we look at this here in terms of the failover, enhanced failover or redundancy capabilities in iFIX 2023, which many of you may not already be up to date on, we did a few things. We thought a little bit differently about how we had approached redundancy in the past. As I mentioned there, the typical approach before this was the redundant pair was sitting side by side. Customers had expressed, and this is again our major focus on voice of customer, had expressed that they needed to be able to have geographic separation for their failover pair. So obviously that requires a different protocol. UDP was used before for our enhanced failover. That works great when something is side by side, but when you're stretching across distances, TCP is needed because you don't have packet loss detection or packet retransmit capabilities inherently in the protocol with UDP. So TCP was added to support this initiative. And also TCP being a little bit heavier weight than UDP, we needed a way to do this efficiently. So we looked at the capabilities and said, okay, what if we went ahead and added compression to the packets for our enhanced failover? And we did that for synchronization. And we were able to synchronize a 65,000 tag database there between our Foxborough and Schenectady locations, about 300 kilometers or 185 miles away, in about 3 seconds, right? And we're just using publicly available IP infrastructure. We're not looking at, running obviously a dedicated cable between the two nodes. And so that functionality allows us to do a multitude of different things, not only separate things geographically. Many of our customers are not going to separate it that far, but it does allow us obviously to also, because TCP is enabled, allow geographic separation or separation of the failover pair to fail over into a cloud-based VM, right? So that is also possible too now with this update for 2023. And in 2024, we leveraged that same idea around packet compression and said, now what do we do in terms of performance for our alarm generation and distribution? So if we actually increase the network, packet size, but also compress the alarms, how can we make alarm generation more and distribution more efficient? So in the past, we had a 16 K packet size for our alarms. You could fit about 3 or 4 alarms in a packet. We actually moved that to 64K, added that compression. So now we can fit 300 to 400 in a single packet, right? By doing that, then also refactoring how alarms themselves are distributed to clients, we can do this much faster and more efficiently. We added additional network throughput capabilities that have positive effect, and impact to the rest of the system. We added diagnostic information, so you can see that more in the net diag menu, so you can see what's going on better in your system. And then we also did our testing internally to see what we could achieve, obviously. And we were seeing upwards of 80% reduction in alarm generation and distribution times during alarm flood scenarios. But what was more interesting was the fact that when we actually went out to beta test this with customers, they were seeing 12 to 18x improvement. So, once you add different elements in there when it comes to live systems, that impact is even felt in a greater capacity by many of our customers. So excited that many of you have already started to take advantage of this. And we've been hearing some positive reports, obviously, with the 2024 release. Workspace start time improvements, obviously, we here as well, too. We looked at how we could actually increase the performance on this as well. And so especially in a run mode. So we refactored how things are done and how Workspace starts up to begin with, what kind of things are brought into memory. And in testing, we were seeing upwards of an 80% reduction in that time that it takes for Workspace to start up the first time. We also did something that was interesting in laying again the foundation for allowing us to do an iFIX 2026. As we went back and said, okay, one of the things that customers expressed the need for was picture open performance as well. And so we took a look at what we could do with the 2024, and we actually came out with a sim for this, which is available in iFIX 2024 General 002, as you can see there. But what we did is we said, okay, we're looking at a significant improvement over past releases through surveying our channel, our partners, our customers. iFIX 5.5 was identified as the fastest that iFIX had ever been when it came to picture open performance in the past. So by looking at that and taking that as the benchmark, we said, okay, how can we actually improve on where we are today, build it back to not only the 5.5 levels, but also exceed that. We actually used our channel and worked with our channel. And we actually we worked with some of our customers, our very close customers that we work with on a pretty regular basis. We use their real use cases, real projects. We got them to do testing as well themselves. And so, setting 5.5 as the benchmark, we were able to look and use those real projects and make major impacts. What we have here, and what we're showing here, is the sample system. Since obviously every project is different, every customer application is different, it's hard necessarily for you to be able, general public, to be able to understand the impact. So we'll use something that everybody has, which is the sample system. So looking at 5.5 sample system versus 2024 with this new sim, you can see that we, on every single one of the pictures that are available there, in the time that it takes to open them, we are seeing upwards of 30+% improvement. Again, so our customers have been reporting strong improvements in their picture open performance with 2024. And this, again, is laying that foundation for 2024 to really be the be-all, end-all when it comes to performance for iFIX. iFIX has enjoyed a very storied history. It's 40 years and throughout all in iterations, and you obviously can't fit everything on the screen, and that's not really the point. But the point of this slide here is just to show that you guys, we've been focusing a lot on voice of customer. We've been focusing on how we can make an impact and positioning iFIX to help you all to be successful both now and also into the future. So when we look at some of the things here, the last 5 or 6 years, you can see central management pop up there. You can see a lot of the themes that are driving the development. And, here there's, certain things that are obviously of concern that when you're trying to upgrade to a new version, that you want to pay attention to. So we took this and we broke this out into another slide to help with that upgrade process, because staying current is obviously the most important thing when it comes to getting access to all the capabilities and performance-based initiatives and updates that have been happening with iFIX over the years. So looking from iFIX 5.8, 5.9, that tends to be the most popular version that we have in terms of older versions out there for our customer base. And we're looking at that and say, okay, how do we get customers to the newest version? we wanted to separate out this and impact of the iFIX changes on moving from a 5859 system to 2024. So the first two things you see, core capability-based technology, those are really just around the things that could actually impact you. Not all are going to be impactful, but if you're moving from a pre iFIX 6.0 to a after iFIX 6.0 version, obviously the long tag names and descriptions piece that you see under the core capability, that's the one to keep in mind. That requires you to update your clients first, because the new clients can talk to both old servers and new servers, and then you update your iFIX SCADA servers, right? So clients first, then servers second. Typical best use case anyway, but just wanted to reiterate that as something to be mindful of. Other than that, the new capabilities and obviously supported OS, with the Windows 10 obsolescence, those are the other things that you really want to be mindful of. And Windows 10 support after that, with Windows 11 is 2022 and beyond, right? So, and again, with all the performance-based initiatives and other enhancements that we put in over the years, we really do recommend customers that they move to 2024. They'll have the best experience and also the best place to start off the new modernization journey when it comes to iFIX. So getting updated obviously is important. We added the Proficy installer in 2022, and we've iterated that also throughout the portfolio. But that, and you all have gone through that, the process of actually updating any of our Historian or iFIX or whatever software you have been doing, you have seen the Proficy installer in action. But one of the things that you may not have noticed is the enhancements to backup and restore utility. So in 2023, we actually enhanced that utility itself. And the backup restore utility has been in iFIX for a long time, but it hasn't always been as utilitarian as it is now, right? And what we focused on here is moving it from the ability of just creating a backup that was really focused even down to the SIM version of whatever you had deployed. You had to deploy back to the exact same configuration in order to work. That's not that helpful when it comes to upgrading. So what we did is we said, okay, if you create a backup file, FBK file, from an older node of iFIX, older version, and we've tested all the way back to 5.5. We don't see any limitations beyond that, but even going earlier than that. But you've taken a backup file, create an actual full backup is what we recommend on the older version on iFIX 2023 and 2024 and beyond, that can take that FBK file and actually restore it directly to a fresh node. So if you spin up a new VM with iFIX 2024, for example, you can take your old FBK file and deploy that and restore it directly to the 2024 node. All the upgrades, all the things that need to be done in the background are done automatically on the fresh new node. So just wanted something to highlight that for you, that utility and capability that you may not have already realized within iFIX. So switching gears real quick, I want to talk about the centralized management and configuration, just to high level give you an understanding of some of the things that have come in here in this foray that we've taken on as a entirety with the Proficy portfolio. So we have this configuration hub and common model. We talked about configuration hub earlier. We have this common model approach, which is further evolving and it's going to be evolving into the data hub, which you may already have heard about and we'll be hearing more about as well too in the coming months. But the focus here is that we have a graphical approach to how you develop. You can develop around specific types of equipment, for instance, and you can set things like the tag structure, how information is coming in and out of that piece of equipment, for instance, how you set everything from a historian perspective and how alarms are done around an equipment type, right? And that, it can be set as a template, and then you can actually instance that template, which will actually auto-generate everything associated with the entire tag structure, etc., for this new instance, and then you can actually deploy that. In earlier versions of iFIX, we actually added substitution and expression support in 2022, for instance, that allowed you to take that, for instance, and you create a new instance, and you can change the number of that instance to say instance number 2 for a pump, etc. And it can actually go down through the entire tag structure and change that automatically. You also have parent-child relationships too as well with these instances, so you can make changes at the parent level that propagate down, and or you can go down to the specific child instance and make changes only there. So you have lots of different capabilities, but this ultimately is around faster deployment and easier maintenance, because now you have a tag structure that can be searched throughout the configuration hub environment and allow you to leverage that as you're building out screens or as you're just doing diagnostics and maintenance and making changes to your architecture. Some of the other things that we've also deployed as well too is the central license management. You can view, manage all your licenses from Configuration Hub. You can deploy them as well too as needed and redeploy them as needed to properly address your architecture. We have tag pooling capabilities now within our product that can also be, again, leveraged from the Configuration Hub environment. We also worked hard on how you bring elements into the Configuration Hub environment. So you can see multiple nodes with, whether that's iFIX or Historian, etc. We went back and said, okay, how do we make some registration improvements to this process to make it easier to get into the Configuration Hub environment? We focus that on in our development. In terms of what it actually looks like, you have lots of different capabilities within Configuration Hub, down from user preferences, your tasks and how things are done. You obviously can set up your, enhanced failover for redundancy. All that can be done here. You can see all the individual nodes. You can go in and see the actual database. You can create new tags. You can see and set, alarms and limits and things associated with that. And your asset model, all those can be done. And then from the changes that you've made as well too, the project configuration and deployment can also be done from the Configuration Hub utility as well. So if you make a change to a screen, for instance, you can push from one node of iFIX to another. So you don't have to, use a remote desktop or physically get up and relocate yourself. You can make those changes on any iFIX SCADA node that is associated with your Configuration Hub central management deployment, and you can push that from any node, from one node to another, one node to many. That can all be done through the same Configuration Hub environment. You can work within Historian. You can set up the archiver, the administration there. All those elements are available for you. You can actually look at your Historian collectors and how that is also done. And so you can set all the limits, set all the changes, and again, deploy that architecture wide. So that's kind of a high-level overview of Configuration Hub. You've seen how it kind of looks here, the screenshots directly from the Configuration Hub environment, just giving you a high level on some of the things that can be done. And let's jump into talking about embedded analytics, Gen AI, how that's impacting automation, how it impacts HMI SCADA. So if we look at the AI ML layer and how that is working today, you all typically speaking have been using historians, or either our historian or other historian type products, SQL servers, for instance, maybe gathering historical data for a number of years. That data has been some ways a kind of a black box in that there's much information that can be leveraged, but it hasn't really been used to the best of its ability, right? So taking a capability that we have within our Proficy portfolio with Proficy CSense and leveraging that from an AI ML perspective and saying, okay, how do we take the information that's there historically and bring that out and leverage that to allow for more efficient processes down at the SCADA layer, and also allowing that to implement and filter through how things are done from a visualization perspective for more efficient decision making. So some of the things that are in iFIX 2024 today, that you can actually leverage, is like, for instance, CSense has our alarm pattern recognition templates. This is available for anybody with the 2024 license, and they can look at the actual alarms and say, okay, hey, alarm C always is preceded by alarm A or alarm Z or something like that. It can look historically and see the connections that may not always be readily apparent to people just looking at the data. And it's doing that on a continual basis. So it can reduce the time to identifying root causes by showing that at least the link there might be causal, maybe not. But at the end of the day, we can always understand that correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation, but it's usually a good indication of investigation. So that's the things that are helpful here. Other things as well too, leveraging some of the available standard capabilities there with iFIX 2024 with the CSense initiative there is, for instance, another one being sensor health. Sometimes alarms are generated because they're actually alarms. Sometimes they're generated because the sensor is going out of spec because it's actually failing. So this can actually look at all the historical data and identify whether a sensor is, failing or whether it's actual alarm. Then the other one being here, predictive control. So obviously this is something that we are looking at in terms of how do we leverage AI ML to make our processes more efficient. So looking at PID loop optimization and other things like that, it's like maybe there's information there historically that says, hey, there are opportunities here for optimization in our processes, right? And this is what this is really designed around, is focusing on that. So, as you can see here, our focus with, the last number of years is putting the things in place that allow Proficy to be much more flexible and capable. You've got AI/ML, we've got web-based visualization, we've got central management, we've got more capabilities around the performance and functionality of iFIX itself, and that is leading to what we're talking about here with iFIX 2026. So, today we'll just give you a little bit of a sneak peek in a demo, but we're looking at the modernization, looking at simplifying the installation, making it quick and intuitive to get it done, and understanding that, hey, a lot of the experts in iFIX are retiring. Let's make sure that the newest generation has an intuitive experience in how we do things within iFIX. Allowing that simplification theme to stretch over to the configuration, the deployment. We have that one single web-based environment for everything, again, from local all the way to, more of a central management theme. Then you look at the performance, more performance initiatives here around, picture open performance and more capabilities in the 2026 version. And then also this data path separation, where we're looking at how do we make efficient information flow through the iFIX system more efficiently, especially when networked. Then we're looking at extensibility for Python EDA, where you're going to be able to get information in and out of iFIX through the EDA tool. And then you have Chromium control to be able to host web-based content. It's going to be able to actually pull in operations hub elements and bring those directly into the workspace environment. Obviously, by bringing those things in, we need more memory available for workspace, so we'll actually be bringing that in. And then we also have some additional functionality around the flexibility of workspace by adding a context-capable and sensitive right-click menu functionality. Then in terms of the central management Proficy support, obviously central certificate management is a big thing as we step into some of these systems that have been deployed for multiple years. Managing your certificates is important. We're actually looking at how we bring, alarming more centrally around the Proficy portfolio, and then the actual plugin registration improvements themselves. And so here's a quick look at, the rest of the roadmap. And you can see here some of the things that we're doing around visualization. You guys have mentioned that we need more 64-bit capabilities and multi-threading capabilities around iFIX, and we're also going to be doing those later years. Zero downtime upgrade is coming as well, and essential sim management and software management is coming portfolio and Proficy wide. So those are things that we're really focusing our attention on, is getting people into the central management theme, getting them updated on a easier basis, and allowing them to have that control centrally for their entire architecture. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the demo there for iFIX 2026. Welcome to a quick demo of iFIX 2026. As you can see here, we have a brand new logo. When you go ahead and click on that, you'll notice something right away. You'll see that it actually opens a web browser because iFIX 2026 will be web-based configurational utility, departure from the old setup that you had before. This is really a new replacement for the SCU. So you come in, you go ahead and sign in with your username and password. You've already set up, hit login. Any iFIX nodes that you already configured, you'll see available on the left-hand side. You click on those. From there, you'll see any available projects that are on that node. You can have multiple projects, of course, on each node, and you can see whether or not they're running or stopped. You can go ahead and enable or disable security right from there. Click these things, you can see start, stop, hit project settings here. You can see a lot of things on the left-hand side, your SCADA, your drivers, your paths. You can start up and time out how it works in terms of running iFIX as a service. You can enable the screensaver and how it works in terms of forcing a log out. You can reset your electronic signature, continuous user, all those things that can be done here within this utility. When you're done with that, you hit apply. Move over here to SCADA and drivers. You can select any IO drivers that you want. And the descriptions there, you can already go ahead and set everything up there. And of course, you can work with your enhanced failover. So data synchronization, transport adapters, you can go ahead and select the order that how things are sent out in terms of data synchronization. You can go into here and edit the actual networks themselves, and all the settings that you'd be able to do before can be done here. Once you're done with all your settings, you can go ahead and select all the other things there and hit apply that you need to. From there, you can go ahead and open the project. You see how things are done here, the node options, all those can be selectable for you. So I hope that gives you a nice sneak peek as to the things that iFIX 2026 has coming, the new environment, and we look forward to getting this to your hands here in the new year.